Reconnecting with someone from your past can be exciting, but what if it reveals a secret that changes everything? This is the story of a second chance that uncovered an unexpected truth. Want to know how it all ended? In the past few years, I had moved on with my life. I got a promotion at work, made new friends, and even tried a few relationships, but nothing ever truly filled the void that remained after we broke up. Then, by chance, we crossed paths again. It was a regular afternoon, and I was working at my favorite coffee shop. When I glanced toward the entrance, there she was. The same striking presence, the same eyes I thought I had forgotten. We exchanged a few words, starting with the classic, "How have you been?" and "It's been so long." The conversation flowed so naturally that it felt like no time had passed. Before I knew it, we were laughing and sharing memories like the old days. By the end, she suggested we meet again. I hesitated for a moment, but eventually agreed. After all, what could go wrong? Over the next few weeks, we started seeing each other more often. We went out for dinner, took long walks in the park, and our connection seemed to grow with each meeting. Though I had my doubts at first, the familiarity and comfort quickly took over. We were reliving something that had always felt unfinished. But at the same time, I noticed something different. She carried a weight on her shoulders that hadn't been there before. I thought it might just be my imagination, but as the days went by, I realized it was more real than I wanted to admit. It all began with small signs that, at first glance, could easily be ignored. Half-finished sentences, sudden mood changes, and that distant look in her eyes whenever the conversation deepened. Despite these, I tried to overlook it. I was happy to have another chance with her and wanted to believe things would be different this time. Then one evening, during dinner at her place while she was in the kitchen, I noticed something unusual. On the dining table there was a stack of papers, and on top was an envelope with a name I didn't recognize. Out of curiosity, and perhaps a bit of concern, I took a look. The contents seemed ordinary, but one detail caught my eye: a birth certificate. I didn't want to be intrusive, but my curiosity got the better of me. When I read the document, my breath caught. The father's name was blank, but the mother's name was hers. My heart raced. She had a child, something she had never mentioned. And according to the certificate, he was about 3 years old. When she came back to the dining room, she must have noticed my expression. She asked if I was okay, and I just nodded, struggling to process everything. But I couldn't hide my reaction for long. I pointed at the papers and asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me about this?" Her face went pale, and she slowly sat down, holding her head in her hands. "You're right. I should have told you," she began, her voice low and full of guilt. She explained that she didn't know how to bring it up. The child was from a relationship that happened shortly after we broke up, and she didn't think I would understand. I sat in silence, trying to absorb everything. Part of me understood why she hesitated, but another part couldn't believe she had hidden something so significant from me. That moment changed everything between us, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. After that night, everything between us shifted. What once felt like a perfect second chance was now weighed down by unanswered questions and a reality I didn't know how to handle. Why did she feel the need to hide this? What did that say about the trust between us? Most importantly, was I truly ready to step into a situation so different from what I had imagined? In the days that followed, my mind was constantly racing. I wondered if I should confront her again or simply accept things as they were, but it was impossible to ignore the feeling that something wasn't right. It felt like I was trying to rebuild a bridge she had sabotaged by not being honest with me from the start. At the same time, I couldn't stop thinking about the child. It wasn't his fault after all, but his existence completely changed the dynamic between me and my ex. Could I handle this? Did I have room in my life for something so big and unexpected? I also began to question my own motivations. Was I trying to relive the past because I truly wanted a second chance, Or was it just a reflection of how I never really got over our breakup? These questions kept me restless, but I knew that to move forward, I needed clear answers, not just from her, but from myself. Days of silence and endless reflection led me to one conclusion. I couldn't let things stay as they were. If there was any chance of moving forward, we needed to have a real, honest conversation. I called her and suggested we meet in a neutral place where we could talk without distractions. She agreed immediately, as if she had been waiting for this. When we sat down, she seemed more nervous than ever. Before I could say anything, she started speaking. "I know I hurt you, and I can't justify what I did. But you need to understand. I was scared. Scared of losing this second chance with you." I listened silently, trying to take in her words. As much as I understood her fears, one question still lingered in my mind. "Why did you think hiding this was better than being honest with me?" I asked, looking directly at her. She took a deep breath before answering. "Because I thought you wouldn't want to stay. I thought the weight of it all would be too much. And maybe it was selfish of me. But I didn't want to lose you again." There was a long pause as I reflected on her response. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part couldn't ignore the impact of her decision. I looked at her and asked the question that had been haunting me since I found out the truth. "What do you want from me now? What do you hope will happen between us?" She hesitated but answered honestly. "I want us to find a way to make this work. I want you to meet my son, for him to know you. I want us to have a chance even if it's hard." Her honesty shook me. It was clear she was being truthful now. But was that enough to erase what had happened? I knew that if I chose to continue, it would be a journey full of challenges. Trust had to be rebuilt, responsibilities shared, and a new path forged, one I hadn't anticipated. We said goodbye without a definitive answer. I needed more time to think, to decide if I was ready to embrace this new reality or if it was better to leave the past behind. I didn't know what my choice would be, but one thing was clear. That conversation was the turning point for whatever came next. After that conversation, I spent days reflecting on what I truly wanted. It wasn't an easy decision. On one hand, there was the chance to rebuild something with someone who still meant so much to me. On the other, there was the weight of dealing with a new reality I wasn't sure I was ready for. I realized that more than the secret itself, what truly bothered me was the lack of honesty. If she had trusted me from the beginning, things might have been different. But at the same time, it wasn't fair to ignore the fear and insecurities she faced. We're human, and we make mistakes, especially when trying to protect something important. In the end, I decided I needed more time to understand my own feelings before making any final decision. Love, no matter how powerful, cannot be built without trust, and rebuilding it would be a long and uncertain process. One thing I know for sure is that stories like this don't have easy answers. They challenge us to look within ourselves, question our priorities, and discover what truly matters. And sometimes what we need most is time, not to forget, but to find clarity. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Would you face the challenges of rebuilding this relationship, or would you leave the past behind? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. Don't forget to subscribe to ReactStories for more gripping tales like this one. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an update, and share this video with someone who values stories of second chances and tough decisions. See you in the next story.